Lastly, we will go and find our last model. This model has over 1,000 makes. They look pretty good. And 400 comments. Some people are including what they used, what settings they used. In the summary, there's an overview talking about dinosaurs, talking about how this can be used in an educational setting. And then what materials are needed. However, it does not go over supports or infill. So let's go ahead and look at the makes here. This person says they did use supports and they did use a raft. This person says they did use supports. They used 20% infill, no raft. This person used 20% infill as well, no supports, yes raft. This person did not use supports or a raft. So this is one where it seems like a lot of people are varied in the settings that they're using. You'll want to lean on your own knowledge to decide how you'd like to 3D print this. It looks like 20% infill is what most people are using. Ideally, when we can, we'd like to avoid supports. The more you 3D print, the more comfortable you'll get with it, and the better you'll understand your 3D printer and what settings work best for it. So let's go ahead and bring it into our slicer, and we can take a look at some of the different ways that I might go about slicing this. So we will select our old model, delete, open files, T-Rex skull, files, and I'm just going to select all of these and pull them in. Now, not all of these can fit on the build plate at one time. I'm just going to move these around so we can look at all of them. So what I would do is I would slice this in two different parts. I would slice the two skull pieces, and then I would slice the base and the rod. So let's bring these in. As you can see, whenever something is outside of the printable area, it will kind of ghost that out with a gray pattern. This looks a little silly, but I can assure you that it should print just fine sitting upright like this. Here are the different places where you might see the need for supports. Up underneath the jaw here, along this back part. If you're worried about your 3D printer wobbling, you'll definitely want supports underneath here. Inside of this cavity here, in these cavities. So ideally, you would not want to have to clean support material out of these cavities. But it does look like they could use support. If you have the ability to support those without filling the cavities, that would be ideal. And that is what tree supports are for. Let's go ahead and we'll double check all of our settings once more. I'll leave this at 0.2. We'll leave the walls at 3. We won't be touching top and bottom. Infill we'll bring back up to 20 since that's what a lot of people were using. material, 205. We won't be touching speed or travel or cooling. So support, let's turn supports on. And we already have tree supports on. And touching the build plate. For the build plate adhesion, I recommend keeping the brim on. We wouldn't want this wobbling around while it's 3D printing. Let's go ahead and slice and see what it looks like. So it's showing that this will take 15 hours and 54 minutes and use 170 grams of filament. Keep in mind that there are another 2 parts that we need to print before this print is finished. Let's go ahead to preview. So here we see the tree supports. And what you want to do is hone in on where it's touching the model. I'm not sure if this part inside of here is merging with the model, so we're going to bring this down just to see. It looks like it is avoiding crossing with the model. When the one person mentioned organic supports, this is what he was talking about. And then you can see that it's put supports underneath the jaw here as well. And also underneath the top of the skull right here. I would give this a try before I would try with regular supports. If this did not work out, then I would reslice it with regular supports. Just to show you what that looks like, and we'll want everywhere. Oh, I'll show you why we want everywhere. Let's try touching build plate and see what it shows us. So this shows 13 hours and 59 minutes and 157 grams. So you can see it's already using less material and less time. But let's take a look at what it's actually printing. Alright, as you can see, we have supports around the base, under the jaw, but we don't have it inside of the model where these areas within the caverns needed to be supported. So if these areas are going to fail, this support material is not going to help. So let's go back and take a look at normal material everywhere. So now this is taking 16 hours and 170 grams, so not too much different from the tree supports. Let's take a look at the preview. You can see it's totally filling up the inside here, and it's all over the teeth. It's going to be a little bit of a pain to clean those teeth off. It's using a lot more support material than the tree supports. When we go in to the inside of the model, you can see that it is entirely filled up in there, and all of that would need to be taken out. So given that, I would actually try printing this without supports before I would try printing it with supports everywhere. Ideally, we would be using the tree supports. If that doesn't work, try without the supports. And then if that doesn't work, try with supports everywhere. But this is a lot of support material to clean out when you don't need to. Would leave a lot of scarring on the inside of the model and around the teeth, which are pretty prominently featured on the outside of the model. I would avoid that. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the other 2 parts. The base and the rod. These 2 don't need much. I'll say the rod, there are 2 different ways to go about this. You can print it like this. It's going to look a little wonky. I'll go ahead and just hit slice and you can take a look at what that looks like. Whenever building up a circle from the side this way, you're going to have these stair steps in a strange way around the model. It's going to be much more obvious in person than it is on the slicer here. It always looks a little wonky and it's never going to be a perfect circle. You can also adjust this so that it's standing straight up, which is probably what I would do, but you'll definitely want a brim to make sure that it isn't going to fall over. Personally, I might even slow the print down to make sure that it wouldn't fall over. So in speed, I like to halve the speed whenever I'm concerned about something falling over. And then build plate adhesion, making sure brim is selected. So we can slice. And that will take 11 hours and 29 minutes and 83 grams. Honestly, because I'm only slowing it down for this part, I would probably print this all on its own, which would take an hour and 2 minutes. And as you can see, we'll print straight up and down, and that should be a better circle. We do have these little lips here, but they look small enough that our 3D printer should be able to deal with those gaps without support material. However, if you are really concerned about it, we can turn on support material and reslice it. It only changes it by 7 minutes. And you'll just pull that piece right off. So that's how I would slice that. And then I would separately slice the base. I'd go back into the settings, remove the supports. This piece does not need support material. And go back into the speed and go back to the default. So now we double check 0.2, 3, 20, 205, not messing with the speed or travel or cooling. No supports necessary. I'm going to leave on the brim. And that's because that is the setting that I think will work best for my 3D printer. Now we'll slice. And this will take 5 hours and 47 minutes and 78 grams. So 5 hours and 47 minutes plus 1 hour and 9 minutes is a lot less than that 11 hours we were looking at when we had them both together, since we had to slow down one of those parts. We'll take a look at the preview. And that all looks pretty good to me. I would say that this part doesn't need 20% infill. However, we do want to make sure that it is pretty hefty, since it is going to be holding up the T-Rex skull. And now we have sliced 4 different models.